What a week. The FBI got hacked. Homeland Security supposedly is sending out emails about hackers in your network. This is what we're going to talk about to start with today. What are these new emails and how are they trying to con you? This is a little bit concerning. We know that the FBI's email system got hacked. And for everyone that's sitting there saying, well, gee, if the FBI gets hacked, there's no way my business can possibly survive an attack. Remember that the FBI is a huge target. They have so many systems, so many people, and the bad guys really would love to send email out as though they are the FBI. And in fact, they did. They used the FBI's email servers to send out some of these fake emails. I thought that was kind of funny. But be that as it may, the FBI closed it down. But there are things you can do to protect yourself, to protect your email. And my wife and I have been working diligently on a guide. Now, you know that I protect businesses. I work closely with the FBI. I've been doing cybersecurity for more than 30 years. I kind of hate to admit that, but you know, I've been on the internet for more than 40 years. So I've been at this for a very long time. And there are things you can do. So we're making available a guide. So she's taken a lot of my teachings and has boiled it down. It looks like it's going to be 25-ish pages. And it's just the key things, the primary things that you can do to stop your email from getting hacked, your bank accounts, etc. There are some pretty simple things you can do. So we're putting that together, and we're also putting together a boot camp. Both of these are free, okay? Absolutely free. And in the boot camp, again, this book isn't about selling you all of my services and stuff. It's giving you actionable things you can do. Yes, you can do. You don't need to be the FBI or a cybersecurity expert to do them. But 5 things you can do that will, 10x your cybersecurity. Really, it's that big a deal, and it's going to take you less than an hour to do all of this stuff. So for those people who like the boot camps, we're going to have a meeting. And, one of these Zoom things, and we're going to do it live, and I'm going to explain it to you, explain it. And you're going to have some homework before the boot camp, because I want you to have some skin in the game too, right? You're not paying me or anything. So I want to make sure that you've done your homework so we can quickly go through all of the stuff that we need to cover in the boot camp. And people who are interested in kind of being the example, which means they are going to get more information than anybody else, you can also say, hey, listen, please use mine as an example. So we'll look at all of these different things. We're going to focus in on that first boot camp primarily on the stuff with passwords. What should you do? How should you do it? How can you tell if your password's been stolen, if your email account's been compromised, all of that sort of thing. And you need to be on my email list in order to find out about this stuff, right? And in fact, when you sign up, I've got 3 special reports that Karen and I wrote that are really going to be helpful for you. These are 3 that we've been using with our clients for years, but again, actionable stuff to do, right? It's not some marketing sales guy trying to sell you the latest, greatest piece of antivirus software that doesn't work. So you can get that. If you go to craigpeterson.com right now, /subscribe, if you want the deep link, craigpeterson.com/subscribe, we'll go ahead and sign you up. I have a little automated sequence that's going to send you the emails with all of the attachments. We got one that's kind of an introduction to Karen and I. You get to see both of us, and it's a really cool picture of when we were on vacation one time. You can get all of that again. It's free. This is the free newsletter. This isn't the paid newsletter. CraigPeterson.com/subscribe, all right? So I can help you out with all of that free content, and I have lots of it. I'm on the radio every week talking about free, right? And you can avoid these things. So I kind of hate to bring up this FBI hack because, as I discussed again with Karen this week, I don't want people to feel like there's nothing that they can do. I have a friend, her name's Laura, and she's in one of my mastermind groups. And Laura was listening to me because another mastermind member got hacked and had $45,000 ultimately stolen from him, and we helped him out. And so I was explaining, okay, so here's the things you can do. And basically all she heard was, I'm never going to be able to do this. And she's a technical person. She teaches people how to become business analysts, which is pretty technical, right? There's a lot of steps involved in doing business and analyst work. And so I was really surprised to hear from her that she thought that securing herself was just too hard. The FBI gets hacked, etc. And so that's when I came to this realization. The bottom line is, okay, it can be hard. If you're like me and you've been doing this for 30 years, you've got the curse of knowledge, right? So you know all of this stuff. This isn't for you if you know everything, okay? This is for people who don't quite understand what's going on, definitely don't understand what they should do, don't know what they should buy, don't know how to use the free stuff that Microsoft and Apple give you and how to pull it all together. That's what I want you to be able to understand. And we spend time every week going through this. And every newsletter, I have an opening now that is, about 3 to 5 minute read, if that. It can be very, very quick read, and is helping you to understand some of the things that you can and should do. So you'll get that as part of the newsletter. Again, CraigPeterson.com. That's in my free newsletter. You should see the paid newsletter, right? It's a big deal because it's your life. It's a big deal because it's your business. It's a big deal because it's your job on the line. And most of the time, when I pick up a new client, it's somebody who's kind of the office manager. Well, frankly, more than the office manager. Sometimes the business owner, owner-operator, says to the office manager, hey, we got to do something about cybersecurity. And then I get a call saying, hey, can you do a cyber health assessment for us? And that cyber health assessment, which we'll do for almost anybody out there, will tell you the basics of, okay, here's what you got to do. You've got to update this. You should turn off this software. You should do this and that with your firewall, so that they have a little checklist, right, that they can run through. That's the whole idea behind one of these cyber health assessments. And then what happens is they say, okay, well, let's talk some more. And we go in and talk with them, talk with the owner, figure out what do they want to do, help them put together a more detailed plan. And then they are off and running. So they can do it themselves. They can hire someone. They can have us do it for them, whatever seems to make the most sense. But it's very important to do it, to do something. Because sitting there, trusting that Google is going to take care of you, or Apple, or whomever it is, trusting Norton Antivirus is going to take care of you. I was reading a quote from John McAfee. He's the guy that started the whole antivirus industry. Now, of course, he passed away not too long ago under suspicious circumstances, but he came out and said, hey, listen, antivirus is dead. Because right now, this year, these weren't his stats. These are stats published. You can find them online. Just DuckDuckGo them. Yeah, I don't use Google for most things. And you'll find that the antivirus is ineffective 70% of the time this year. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to listen to me here because I am going to help keep you up to date here. Some people are auditory listeners. You need to make sure that you get the newsletter so that you get the weekly updates and you find out about these free trainings and special reports that we put together. Make sense to you? And you can attend the boot camps where we cover, they're basically 1 hour meetings on Zoom, just like you're used to. And we cover one or more specific topics, and we do it live, and we use your information. Well, the information you want us to have and you want us to share. So how could that be better? And it's the same sort of stuff, but deeper dives and more interactive, obviously, than the radio. And you can listen to me here every week. I think it's important that you do and you understand this stuff. So anyways, ramble. It all starts with email. How to keep your email safe. You might remember years ago, people were getting broken into and emails were sent out using their accounts. Well, that happened decades ago and it's still happening today. So sign up right now, craigpeterson.com. I promise you, I am not a heavy marketer, okay? You're going to get good, actionable information that you can put to use in a matter of minutes. craigpeterson.com/subscribe. Our intelligence monitoring indicates exfiltration of several of your virtualized clusters in a sophisticated chain attack. Here I am trying to put on this like official voice, right? And it didn't do so well. Anyways, that's what we're going to talk about right now. This is an email that came from the Department of Homeland Security warning about hackers in our network, okay? The subject line here, the one I'm looking at, and this is just this week, urgent threat actor in systems. The email goes on, we tried to black hole the transit nodes used by this advanced persistent threat actor. However, there is a huge chance he will modify his attack with fast flux technologies. I don't know if that ties into a flux capacitor or not, which he proxies through multiple global accelerators. So this is somebody who doesn't really know what they're talking about. They're just throwing out big words. We identified the threat actor to be somebody whom is believed to be, and of course whom, wrong usage of the word here, is believed to be affiliated with the extortion gang, the Dark Overlord, comma, uppercase. We highly recommend you to check your systems and IDS monitoring. Beware, this threat actor is currently working under the inspection of the NCCIC. As we are dependent on some of his intelligence research, we cannot interfere physically within 4 hours, which could be enough time to cause severe damage to your infrastructure. Stay safe. U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cyber Threat Detection and Analysis, Network Analysis, Group Total Control Panel. So this is classic when it comes to scammers. And the classic part is that you could detect is the grammar's bad. The wording is confusing, his punctuation is wrong, and he's throwing out a whole bunch of words that are used when it comes to hackers. You know, there are things like advanced persistent threats. That's one of the biggest problems, in fact, businesses have today. But in reality, the way he used it was incorrect. Now, that's something I would notice because I've been doing this stuff for more than 30 years. But the average person is never going to notice something like this. So it's been pretty successful. Now, a little different than usual here. These fake messages don't have attachments. They don't have phone numbers. They don't have web links. Therefore, what? Well, your email filter is not going to look at them and say, oh, these look risky. These URL links are going to risky sites, so I'm going to block it, right? That's what we do. We have the advanced email filtering from Cisco that we use for our clients. That includes their amazing artificial intelligence for phishing and stuff. So an email like this is not going to trigger those types of alarms. So they're saying, don't panic, avoid contacting the FBI for further details, and ignore the accusations that are made in the email. This is Sophos. Though Sophos is a cybersecurity company. They have a lot of stuff. They have some pretty good stuff. It's not terrible. But Spamhaus is tracking it. Now, if you've ever been blacklisted, it's called black holing, really, by people who might have used your domain to send spam, or maybe you're a spammer, you've heard of Spamhaus. And I've been blacklisted before inappropriately. The good news is my domain that I use for emailing is about 30 years old as well. So it's got a pretty good reputation over the years. But Spamhaus is saying now that this is a scam. They've been tracking it. It's a well-known scam, and it's been widely circulated not to those office managers that I said are often the people who call us when there's a cybersecurity problem, or we get calls from office managers when something doesn't look right with the emails. And we have a client that had been getting these weird emails, and we were called saying, what's going on? Have a look. We looked and we found all kinds of problems, right? So that, again, an office manager approaching us and thinking everything's fine because they had Norton and they had the more advanced semantic stuff, and it didn't catch any of this really nasty stuff. But that's part of what Spamhaus does. And they're looking at it and saying, okay, wait a minute now. We're seeing these emails come out. They are definitely not coming from FBI.gov, which is what the return address is. And so Spamhaus tags it. Spam Assassin's going to tag it. And it's not even going to make it to anything but a log on our email filters. So a number of people have received it. If you've received this email, I'd love to know it, because they really are trying to go after the people who are a little bit more into this. Now, how did they find them? Apparently, they have stolen the email addresses by scraping them from public sources. So databases published by ARIN, for instance, the American Registry for Internet Numbers, and I'm assigned my own number as CP205 because I was so early on by ARIN. They're the guys that have been managing the basic internet domain stuff here in the U.S. for a very long time. And it also doesn't mean, by the way, that ARIN had any sort of a breach. It's really just showing that the crooks behind this disinformation campaign have really been focusing on people who appear to be network administration, because those are the email addresses and names that ARIN is going to have. So why are they doing this? Why are they sending it out? It's frankly, it's kind of hard to tell. Some of the emails have a QR code in them. Now that is intriguing, because here's how a lot of these basic email filters work. They look at it, they say, well, what links are in there? How many links? How much of the email is a graphic, etc. And they understand, well, it's going to internetbadguys.com. There's the link right there. Forget about it. I'm not going to forward this email to the intended recipient. But if there's a QR code in that email to almost every email filter out there, it only looks like a graphic. So it might have been a picture of your mother as far as it knows. Most of them are not very smart. So you getting an email, having a QR code in it and saying, oh, that's kind of interesting. Let's check out that QR code. That's where the hazard comes. All right, so be very, very careful. Fake news like this, it's not only unfair to the people who are accused in it, which is what happened here. They can be accusing your own IT department. They can be accusing other people within your department, which is typically what's happening. And then what they may try and do, now that you don't trust your IT people, your security people, because they're mentioned by name in the email, but remember their names were probably scraped off of Aaron, that you don't trust them, and now they attack you, and you don't trust that you've been attacked, right? So fake news, a term coined by Hillary Clinton during her campaign. But that's exactly what it is, entirely fake. So this email, if you get one from Homeland Security about threat actors in your systems, almost certainly fake. Stick around. We got a lot more coming up. Don't forget, subscribe. Get my weekly newsletter. I'm going to be publishing even more. I think probably starting next month, I'm going to be sending a couple emails out a week because I got to get you guys up to speed so that you're ready for the upcoming Bootcamp. Everybody knows about the chip shortage, right? Computer chips, they're just hard to find. I'm hearing all kinds of ads from Dell lately on the radio, and they're saying, just buy now. Well, they're not selling new high-end machines anymore. The White House, this is a story from The Verge, has allegedly kind of stepped in about Intel's plans to increase chip production. And you'd think that the White House would be encouraging chip production, considering the shortages. Just this week it came out, Tesla has been delivering their electric cars without USB ports. Other manufacturers are no longer providing you with an electric window for your car. It's a crank window. Car manufacturers did it to themselves, frankly, by stopping orders for chips during the lockdown, thinking that somehow people wouldn't need cars anymore, and yet the sales of cars went up. And when they go up, guess what happens to the price? The price goes up, right? Inflation, you have more money chasing fewer goods. So they really nailed themselves. Don't feel so sorry for some of these car manufacturers, but we need more chips. I mentioned one of the manufacturers of PCs that many of us use in our offices and use in our homes. Dell's a good company. They have been for a long time. However, you got to be careful when you're buying computers because Dell makes very low-end computers all the way up through good, solid servers. Same thing's true with HP, Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard. Remember those guys back in the day? Yeah. They also make everything from cheap computers that you never would buy, should not buy, all the way up through really good ones. It's kind of like going to Walmart. You go to the Walmart and you don't want to buy any of the computers sitting there with one exception, and that is the Chromebooks. If you buy a mid-tier Chromebook at Walmart, you're going to get a good little computer. Doesn't run Windows, doesn't run Microsoft Office, Word, etc., but it can still edit those documents, and it's a very good machine that is kept up to date. Just watch the price. $110 Chromebook probably isn't going to last. It doesn't have much storage on it, etc. A $2,000 Chromebook is probably major overkill. So go somewhere in the $400, $500 range for a Chromebook, which is, by the way, where they're selling some of the laptops, Windows laptops. Same price point. Again, that's why I just wouldn't buy any of that stuff. So we need more chips. We need higher-end chips. They are very hard to get our hands on right now. We're talking about electrification of everything. And if you've heard me on the radio during morning drive time, you know I've been just bemoaning how the government's putting the horse before the cart. They're out there saying electric, 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 and shutting down pipelines and coal mining and coal power plants, although coal is one of the cleanest energy sources nowadays because of all of the scrubbing that's going on with the output of the coal plant. And also, of course, they've been stopping most of the nuclear plants from coming online, even though the new technology in nuclear is impossible to fail. They use basic physics to make sure that these things aren't going to do a Jane Fonda, a China syndrome thing. Okay, so it's just crazy. We don't have the electrical production. Even if we put up, it would take literally millions of wind farm turbines and obviously millions of roofs and fields covered with solar cells. We would still need nuclear. We would still need other sources of power because the sun doesn't shine all the time and the wind doesn't blow all of the time. This is just completely backwards. People aren't thinking it through. It's the knee jerk. And of course, they're investing heavily, they being the Congress people themselves, particularly those Congress people like the Al Gores of the world and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, because they are forcing a move to this technology that isn't ready for prime time. And at the same time, we are trying to buy electric cars. How are we going to charge them? How are we going to run our homes? It's like Europe. People froze to death last winter in Europe. It's going to happen again this year. And think about what happened in Texas last year. Yeah, some of that was because they weren't prepared. But guess what else happens? Sometimes the wind isn't blowing in Texas. So there's just all kinds of problems. So Intel is saying, well, we got to increase our chip production. Intel's main business right now, by the way, seems to be moving towards making chips on behalf of other people, other companies, rather than making their own chips. Isn't that kind of interesting? And the industry, the chip fab industry, the ones that fabricate the chips, make the chips, are spending about $2 billion a week, according to the latest numbers I saw, to try and expand the manufacturing. Well, apparently Intel went to the White House because they want some of our tax dollars. You know, the money they take at the point of a gun? They want some of that so that they can build their business, build it back better. And apparently some sources close to the situation told Bloomberg that Intel proposed making silicone wafers in a Chinese factory, which could start production towards the end of next year. But in a move that I agree with at the Biden White House, apparently Intel was strongly discouraged due to potential security issues. Yeah, no kidding. Some major security issues here. We don't want to give away our technology to make this leading edge stuff. Think about the U.S. We were always the country that people came to for technology. I mentioned this week on the radio, the cotton gin. Way back when, look at how much labor that cut. Look at the internal combustion engine. And again, the Teamsters, the horses, the cleanup crews in New York City, right? All of that went goodbye pretty much because of technology. And people got higher technology related jobs and everyone became more efficient. And that's what's supposed to happen right now. Right now, basically, we have stagflation. In other words, prices are going up, but we're not getting any more productivity out of it. That's a real problem. And that's why they keep talking about the problems we were having in the late 70s. And I remember those well. I remember gas lines sitting there in California waiting to buy gas. It was incredible what was happening out there. So Intel thinks it needs to secure funding from the federal government in order to ramp up the production. Bloomberg announced, or well, said that Intel currently has no plans to produce silicon wafers in China after discussing it with government officials, and it will instead consider other solutions. Now, I hope those other solutions are to make those plants, those chip fab plants, here in the United States. Let's put ourselves back on a leading edge footing here. Google moved its artificial intelligence lab to China, talking about an anti-American thing to do. Moved it to China, artificial intelligence. That's something we need. The U.S. needs to be the world leader in some of these technologies. And frankly, we're not the leader anymore. It's frankly a shame. So you can check this out. It's on The Verge. You'll also find it up on my website, craigpeterson.com. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter so you can get all of these little trainings. 5 minutes a weekend can make a big difference. craigpeterson.com. Hey, I don't want to depress anyone, but Bitcoin is now a 13-year-old teenager. And back in January 2009, Bitcoin was priced at, January 3rd, 2009 is when it was launched. And each Bitcoin was priced at, you ready for this? 0.08 cents each. Okay, so and because of that, a lot of people have been saying, we've got to get into this and that. In fact, Elon Musk has been kind of pushing up the price of another digital currency. All of the initial price increases in Bitcoin were due to fraud, according to a lot of reports, and we can get into those if you'd like. Fraud, that's a great way to launch a whole new product. And they also played some other games. For instance, the biggest driver of Bitcoin price for a long time was crooks using it for ransomware. Yeah, people had to buy ransom and pay ransoms. How do you pay a ransom? Well, usually it was with Bitcoin, and that meant you had to turn US dollars or other foreign currencies into Bitcoin. And as economists in the White House don't seem to understand, when there is more money tracing a limited commodity, the price of the commodity goes up, whether it's gasoline, food, or Bitcoin. And that's exactly what happened. Percentage-wise, how much of an increase has there been in the value of Bitcoin? Let me see here. See if I can figure this out. 7,750,000,000% increase. Isn't that something? Now, of course, we don't all have these magical glasses that let us look forward to kind of figure it all out. But it's based on this peer-to-peer electronic cash system that was written about by someone or a group of people that went by the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto. And there have been a few people over the years who have claimed that they are the person that started it, and maybe one of them is, maybe none of them are, who knows. But this was first published October 31st, 2008, so about a month later is when it started to trade. And it is just incredible here. Bitcoin was really perceived initially as a threat by governments and financial institutions. I think it's still perceived as a threat by government. They are able to track Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in many cases. And the way they track it is, if you have Bitcoin, what good is it unless you can use the Bitcoin to either buy something or to trade it for US dollars or another hard currency? That's how they're tracking it, without getting into a lot of detail here. But it's interesting to look at because the Bitcoin white paper is proposing a solution to prevent what they were calling double spending, and when you don't trust a third party necessarily. And that's where we got these logs, if you will, these balance sheets that were being used to track everything. And then you had the voting. You had to have 50% of these systems that were tracking all of the transactions agree on a transaction, etc. And that's actually been a problem for Bitcoin because of the intermediaries you have to go through or get to approve your transaction. It's frankly a problem that's really slowed down transactions. So you can't just go like with a credit card and pay for something that's done. It can take a day or more. Now, it's interesting that we're getting close to the ultimate limit of Bitcoin offerings. The blockchains mined block number 707,000, which, by the way, offered a mining reward of 6.25 Bitcoins. So think about that. Well, it costs you more to mine Bitcoins than they're worth if you're trying to do it in the Northeast. In fact, pretty much anywhere in the United States. So don't just run out and start doing it. My son and I don't know, 5-8 years ago, something like that, we decided we'd start trying to do some mining, and we did, and we didn't find any Bitcoins, and it was just cooking some machines, and so we said, forget about it, and we gave out on it. But it does have a hard cap, and it's got a ways to go. I said it's approaching, it is, but there's 21 million Bitcoin is the hard cap. And the community that maintains the software and maintains Bitcoin, because it is a community, has been modifying the rules as time went around about how many Bitcoin you get when you're mining something and solving these problems, and how the blockchain works, and how many honest and dishonest mentions were in the original Bitcoin white paper, and how can they reject invalid blocks. So there's a lot of technical stuff going on, and it's changing all of the time. And ultimately, it's the consensus mechanism that has been slowing it down. So when it costs you more to mine a Bitcoin than you get for it. So let's do a little bit of math here. If we say that how much is a Bitcoin worth right now? So we say current value of Bitcoin. I'm typing it in right now. So it's about $57,000 per Bitcoin. So if we say 57,000, there we go, 57,000 times, what did I say? 6.25, right? So $362,000 equivalent is what the person who mined this block was paid. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah, it really does. It adds up quite quickly. But when you consider that it costs more to mine a Bitcoin than it costs, then you get to for paid for it. $356,000, that's a lot of electricity and a lot of hardware. And because of that, China has shut down Bitcoin mining operations because it uses so much electricity. And in the United States and in some other countries, but here in the US and in the UK, some of these Bitcoin mining operations have been buying coal-fired power plants, so that they can produce their own electricity so that they can make it worthwhile to mine. So things are going to change. They're going to be changing the rules. As I said, we've got a total of 21 million Bitcoin ultimately, and so far we've only just mined number 707,542. So they're going to change the rules. I'm going to keep an eye on this because that's kind of an interesting one. Elon Musk, his quote is, cryptocurrency is fundamentally aimed at reducing the power of a centralized government. And that, by the way, can be one of the main reasons that Bitcoin hasn't been really adopted in the mainstream yet. And Elon has all kinds of tweets about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. He says Bitcoin is my safe word. Isn't that something? He's been primarily the guy behind Dogecoin, which is yet another cryptocurrency. DOGE coin, Doge, I guess, coin. And you can find that online. I think, isn't Doge even publicly traded? Well, it's certainly traded as a crypto. Okay, so Dogecoin right now is worth 22 cents. It's down from its month, week, and day highs. I'm looking here. Yeah. So it's gone up and down. It's been worth more, a couple of weeks ago. So that's part of the problem with it. If you don't have money that you can absolutely waste, don't buy this stuff. I'm not an investment advisor, but I've never bought any Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. And the problem is, from my perspective, that it is not real at all. Yeah, you can say, look at this, I could have made 7,000,000% on that. Well, you could do the same thing almost if you had, instead of buying a brand new Tesla Model S, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, and paying $77,000 for that. If you had bought $77,000 worth of Tesla stock, you'd be in the millions of dollars in value right now. And so we've got the Rivian company out there, Rivian. I don't know if you know these guys or not. I watched a motorcycle show. They were going from the tip of South America all the way on up to San Diego. And they had this Rivian electric truck, which is really quite cool. Well, they are public right now. They just went public. And they have a market capitalization, in other words, a value of Rivian, which has only made a couple of dozen vehicles. That's it, total. And they're owned by people who work for the company. Their market capitalization is 50% more than most of the major manufacturers out there. It's just crazy how much it is worth. And why? It's because people are looking at it saying, well, Tesla appreciated 7 million%. Rivian's going to do the same. And by the way, they are cool cars. I love the idea behind electric vehicles. It's just that we've got the cart before the horse. We don't have the electricity. We're not making the hard decisions. We're just ripping stuff out. It's absolutely crazy. By the way, they had a 15% drop in the value of their shares on Wednesday. It'll go up, it'll go down, but it's something we got to just remember, okay? Cryptocurrency is not it yet. A Tesla stock is worth something, will probably always be worth something. Cryptocurrency is worth something, but tomorrow may be worth zero. And don't go crazy. These market caps of startup companies that have never done anything being worth 50% more than major U.S. auto manufacturer? What? That's crazy. Clothing prices have been going up. In fact, apparel prices were up 4.2% in the last 12 months. That's as of August. We've got cotton going up. There's a whole bunch of things that are going up. And a company out there called DressX thinks it has a solution for all of these prices. Everything's been going up. I put some gas in my car the other day. I have you might know, of course, a 1980 Mercedes, and my wife drives a nice little Ford Edge. Not a particularly big SUV, kind of, I guess, a mid-size SUV. And I think it was about 15 gallons in, and it cost me more than $50. I can't believe it. We used to have a little Volkswagen Passat diesel we would drive around, and we were getting pretty close to 60 miles per gallon around town. And diesel was about $1 a gallon, and it cost $20 to fill the silly thing up. And we could drive all the way down to New York City and back on $20 worth of diesel, one fill up, okay? None of that's true anymore, is it? And we're looking at some increases. It's not like the kind of increase we've seen in certain foodstuffs or gasoline or heating oil, but apparel prices are up. And there's a company out there that thinks that maybe they have a bit of a solution for you. It's called DressX. I found a video online of a young lady who's got a lot of followers, interesting lady, and she was trying them out. She tried a different dress or different clothes every day for a month. No, I did not watch all of the video, but I got the basic idea. And the idea is that people are buying digital clothes now. Now think of that for a minute. Would you pay for a designer dress? And maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't pay for a designer dress, but you know already, like AOC's dress that she wore, the Lady of the People, only cost, what was it, $30,000 per seat for her to go to that banquet. And I think her dress was like $5,000 or $6,000. Well, you can get a dress, just like AOC, that's designed by a high-end fashion designer for somewhere between $40 and $60. Okay, but it's a virtual dress. It's not a real dress, not in the real world. It's interesting what they're doing and trying to do. If you have used some of these online sites like Instagram, they have various types of what they call filters. So you can put a filter on you, and there's like a makeup filter, for instance, that makes you look like you're all made up, right? It gets rid of all of the blemishes on your skin, and there's other filters that do backgrounds and do different things and make you look like you're a kitty cat or whatever. They do all kinds of crazy things. Well, this company called DressX has now come out with filters that you can use in their app, and they don't work too well right now, but people have been buying these digital clothes to wear. Now, you don't wear them out, okay? This is really like the king's new clothes. You might remember that story, right? And if all you have on are your digital clothes, you don't have anything on. However, what it does is if you're using their app and you're moving around with their app, it paste these clothes on you. And it's a little funky right now. It's not the best, but you can bet that's exactly where it's going. And it reminds me of a Bruce Willis movie. I'm trying to remember the name of it. And it's, I think, really bringing up a whole type of dysphoria that I think people are going to have more and more, where you're living in this artificial life. And that artificial life that you're in, that's called surrogates. I was just looking up as we were talking. That artificial life that you're in is so nice, you don't want to live in the real world. And I'm starting to see this now with things like DressX, which you'll find online at dressx.com. You can now wear anything you want. You can use the filters that are available generally to change your appearance, to change your ethnicity, to change anything you want. And if you ever saw Surrogates, it was a very interesting movie. I liked it. I watched it because I generally like Bruce Willis and Rosamund Pike, who were the two primary actors in this movie. But in the movie, everybody was just sitting at home. And they were in these 3D chairs. And while you're in that chair, you could be anybody, anywhere, doing anything. And literally anyone. And so you're sitting in the chair. You can see around you. It looks real. It feels real. Everything about it is real, at least for the most part. But in reality, and none of it's real. And these people, some of them got out of those chairs, and while they were out, nasty things happened to them. In fact, he was a cop, and they were investigating some murders of these people who were, again, using what they were calling surrogates. Nowadays, with what our friends over at Facebook are doing, you are going to see it called something else. Facebook, in case you didn't know, Facebook changed its name. Now, Facebook is still Facebook, but the parent company, kind of like Google, split kind of off and changed the company name. Facebook did the same thing. They're calling it Meta. And the idea is to have this meta universe where, again, just like in surrogates, nothing is real. Just like on DressX, you can wear any fashions you want to. And instead of paying thousands of dollars, you pay tens of dollars, basically. Now, I mentioned that their video isn't very good, at least not yet, over at DressX. But you can go to DressX. You can take photos of yourself and send them to DressX. They will go ahead and put whatever clothes you want to buy on you. It's basically, it's photoshopping. But they do a pretty good job in general. I looked at a whole bunch of them, but it looked pretty real. You don't have to consider the fit. You don't have to worry about how big you are because all of these clothes adjust infinitely. A store doesn't have to stock a bunch of them. So we're moving with this whole metaverse idea and these digital clothes, which are really a thing nowadays, as Vice said, Vice.com. We're moving more and more to this unreal world and some real unreal fashions too. I'm looking at some of them and it's hard to even describe them. It looks like there's all of these things growing all over the clothes that are coming out and just doing all kinds of weird things. So there you go, a note on fashion. I'm looking right now at a picture that's right in front of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. And a lady is wearing one of these digital dresses. Now, they tell you what you should be doing when you take that picture is wear skin-tight clothes, so that they can match the digital clothes to you a little bit better. But we'll see. She's saying in this particular tweet in front of the Met, she's saying, I just can't wait for the Met Gala, what it'll look like in 2121. Because you know what? She's not wrong about this. It's really going to change. There's some real cool stuff. Go to my website if you want to see this. You can find it on Vice, but I have a link to it. Just look for this week's show notes, and you'll find it right there. In fact, you can even search for it on my website because I have everything transcribed. Just look for digital clothes because they're a thing now. Hey, I also want to talk a little bit here about the next little article, which is what's happening right now with Apple. And you've probably heard about these ID cards. In Austria right now, they are stopping people randomly and asking for their papers. They want your papers. If you have not been, they call it vaccinated. It's not a vaccine, really. It's so funny to see the CDC change the definition of vaccine just so it meets their jab standards. But if you're not vaccinated, there's an immediate, it's about a $3,500 fine that the police officer will issue to you. And of course, there's police everywhere. Just stopping people randomly and asking for their papers. Well, Apple is making various U.S. states that have decided they want to use a digital ID card pay for customer support and also for some of the technology. Now, the initial idea behind this, and Apple's been working on it for a while, is that you can have your driver's license in the iPhone wallet app. More secure, it's certainly more convenient for most people. Sometimes you might forget your wallet, but most people don't forget their iPhones. But the feature, when combined with Apple's biometric security measures, really could also cut down on fraud. So we've got about a half a dozen states right now that have signed up with Apple and are paying part of the freight for these things. And when they pull you over and ask for your papers, You'll have them right there on your iPhone. Isn't that handy? Stick around. We got more to talk about. Thanks for joining us today. And visit me online, craigpeterson.com. Stick around.